Today, it's time to talk about the biggest creature ever in Magic the Gathering. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Today, we are here to talk about the biggest creature in all of Magic the Gathering, and it is a worm. It's the new Buy a Box card. Now we're gonna get to it at the end. We're gonna lead up to it because that's the way to do this. So, where is this worm from? It is from the world of Ravnica. We're going to be talking about an upcoming spoiler. The spoiler specifically for the Buy a Box, which means some of you already know the card we're talking about. But that's fine. Enjoy the history as we make our way there. So, Ravnica itself, as far as I understand, has the most worm-related cards out of every plane of existence. I did a search. There are 86 cards currently in the entirety of Magic the Gathering that have the word worm in their name. And this card we're about to talk about today is the 12th in the line. So that's 12 out of 86, right? So you're looking at more than 1 out of every 10 worms out of the entire history of Magic the Gathering coming specifically from Ravnica. Now, I want to go through a history of the different worms and how they are used in Ravnica, and we'll tie it all up with the biggest, baddest worm of them all. So, let's start out by talking about worms' roles in Ravnica. Now, as far as I understand, a lot of these worms live under the earth. Most of the world is cityscaped, which is why you don't see a ton of different natural wildlife. But worms can live under the earth, deep under the earth, where they're not really disrupting the city, or in some cases are used by the city. Now, in terms of the worms actually being part of any particular guild, there's only one guild that really utilizes them on a regular basis, and that's Celestia. Now, they are used in other fashion to demonstrate flavor for other guilds, and we'll talk about that. But let's start by talking about their role in Celestia. Celestia is the white-green guild, and they're very much a unity, like all the numbers matter, where we are strong because we are a group. It's not quite a hive mind, but it is similar. It is very, very similar. So they harness these worms, and you'll see this. We're going to start out by looking at Siege Wurm because it's an excellent example of the type of abilities that Celestia has, like Convoke. Convoke lets you pay 1 less mana for each creature you've tapped while casting this spell. And the cool thing on top of that is it's not just colorless reduction, you can actually reduce the colored part of the spell as well. So if you had 7 creatures out, you could tap them to cast this Siege Wurm for free. And you'll notice something else, guys. We're going to notice this about a lot of worms. They totally look like a harangus. It totally looks like you unzipped your pants and you got your harangus with a nice old thimble tip on there. So this Siege Wurm, I love the artwork. It's just shown smashing up, just blasting through city. And the metal shod helmets that they put on these helps to demonstrate the fact that it is like domesticated or part of the conclave, part of that unique group, like not a mindless worm, it's part of this mindful group. Now, as I said, they do use the worms to show you different aspects of different guilds in the world of Ravnica, which I enjoyed as well. That's evidenced by things like Golgari Rotwurm. You take a look at that. 5 mana gets you a 5/4, so even in death it's still very powerful. And sacrifice a creature, target player loses a life. This definitely transmits the concept of the Golgari, right? It's got Rotwurm in the name. It's a zombie worm. The worms represent green in nature, so it's like the complete opposite of that. And the flavor text says, like corpse worms through a carapace, rotworms slide through the hollowed bones of the Undercity. So you can just see the noxious place that these exist in the Golgari. The Golgari are the green-black, like, undertakers, recyclers, trash men of the society. They reuse the death and everything of that nature. And it wasn't just illustrated in things like the Golgari. For example, there's the Streetbreaker Wurm, which is a red-green worm from Ravnica. Now, these are ones that these are wild worms. These are not under the control of any guild. They just happen to be out there. Occasionally, they come to the surface, and they're more of a force of nature causing problems. As you can see, these worms, I like that if you look at the Streetbreaker Wurm, Breaker Wurm, I should say. It's 5 mana for a 6/4, whereas the Golgari Rotwurm was 5 mana for a 5/4. So you see that, like, the slight extra, like, vitality you get by being alive versus dead. So I enjoy that as well. And the flavor text helps to communicate how multiple guilds operate in one neat little package, actually. The flavor text for this one says, the Orzhov run a construction unit whose only business is rebuilding the wreckage left in the wake of worms. And what you need to understand about the Orzhov is the white-black aligned, incredibly selfish religion group where they enslave people's souls even after their lives have ended and force them to work for them. They're a very nefarious, unscrupulous group. So they operate a business that repairs cities after these worms have come up. And when business is slow, they pay Golgari Carnomancers to lure the worms to the surface, which makes it sound like they pay Golgari mages to get corpses that lure these Streetbreaker Wurms up like food to smash the roads up so they can make more money. Isn't that interesting? I genuinely enjoy that. They have another red-green worm. Now this one's to show you the Gruul instead. And this is it's shown as a Gruul as well because you get a 7/6, which is bigger than the other worms you're seeing in most cases. When the architects of Ravnica claim a structure will stand against a worm, they never mention for how long. The artwork is intense too. That worm, I like it. It's very Gruul. It looks like just a very natural worm. It doesn't have any iron shod like helmet at all. Also, the black-red look of it, it just kind of feels different than the other worms. Plus, I love the contrast of the raw nature of it, and it's ensconced in the city. Like on either side of it, you've got man-made structures that it is just reaching up and bashing through. And I like too the fact that the bridge shows a point of fragility that it's smashing as well. I really enjoy the way that this artwork communicates the concept of the Gruul's brutality. That's very cool. Now there is one worm out of all of them that really, to me, doesn't fit it at all. Even the artwork, it just feels really weird, and that's Battering Wurm. 7 mana for a 4/3 Bloodthirst. I mean, yes, they gave it the Gruul Bloodthirst, and they gave it the Gruul watermark. And I don't know if it's the cartoony artwork, the snake rattle and roll feel of it. There's just something about this entire worm that just doesn't sit right with me, and it feels like it doesn't exist on the world of Ravnica the same way. So we're going to move on. I just wanted to point it out as a weird anomaly to me. Then we've got Terrus Wurm. Now this one is this is another zombie worm. So this is another Golgari flavor enhancer right here. It's pretty cool. I like the scavenge concept. It's another way of showing that the Golgari reuse corpses. They're the undertakers, the trash men, as I said. The flavor text says, we follow it through its tunnels, and where it dies, we farm. And that's Mihas, a spore druid. I like that. It's almost like a it's kind of got like a shepherd vibe to it, where it's like we just kind of like follow these animals around, and then when it dies, that's when we start our little like that's when they actually start shepherding. That's their little sheep, the little sporelings, the saplings that grow up out of the bowels of this Terrus Wurm. I like that. All right. This is it's a little weird because it says we fall through its tunnels, and where it dies we farm, and it's already a zombie worm. But overall, the flavor is pretty good. Now the next card we're going to talk about is magic inspired by worms and not a worm itself, and that's Wurmweaver Coil. And this is green mages choosing to emulate the sheer raw ferocity of a worm, because in the world of Ravnica, obviously there aren't many truly natural undomesticated beasts anymore. So clearly worms are going to be something that genuinely appeal to nature mages. And on top of that, look at it. When you cast this, you are inside of this gigantic spectral magical, it's not even spectral, this gigantic magical pure magic worm that you get to go rampaging through. Like if you were a 1/1, all of a sudden you're a 7/7, so you're a worm that's big enough to even eat the 6/4 worms and survive. And I enjoy the fact that you can sacrifice the enchantment from off of you to turn it into a 6/6 green worm as well. The flavor of that is amazing. You basically just throw your arms out, Booga! And then the worm magic just flies off of you and turns into a worm that you can command separately from you. That's really fun flavor. So there's another worm spell that is not technically a creature card, but I'm counting it in the same way as, and that's Advent of the Worm, because while it isn't a creature spell, it does just make a 5/5 green a worm creature token with trample. But what I really like about it is it represents like just a worm like abruptly and violently ripping up out of the ground hardcore. And you can see that in this artwork too. The red energy that they've put behind it, like the red lighting and everything, gives it a very aggressive feel. And the fact that they've even tilted the mouth, not tilted the mouth, sorry, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's got like a fangish kind of effect almost. Like it doesn't have fangs, but it's got that kind of fanged maw effect. And there's just something about it being blinded and guided by the consciousness of Matt Celestia with that like metal casing over its head that just makes it so much more intense. Like it's been armored by this group and they're controlling it and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I mean, look at that tiny little guy, if you can even see them. There's multiple people barreling away or leaping off to the sides, just showing the epic size of this. There's even a drake flying off up near its neck, you can see. It's really epic, guys, and each of the Ravnica blocks has had an epic worm, at least one epic worm to like represent the biggest, baddest worms, and we'll get to them. But before we do that, I want to show another very haranguous looking Celestia worm, and that's the Armada Wurm. 6 mana for a 5/5 trampler. When it enters the battlefield, put a 5/5 green worm creature token with trample onto the battlefield as well. So you can see the one worm bursting up. Getting hiccups, boys. And you can see a second worm arcing out behind it. I definitely enjoy it. I love these action scenes. I love like this Armada Wurm. It looks like they have almost like a drill for a head, right? And the way that its body is arced, it almost looks like it's like got a rotational twist. Like it just quickly rotational twist jerked straight up through the surface of the earth and busted up underneath multiple people. Man, this art is fantastic. Vulcan Baga did a great job. Now, let's move on to the biggest, baddest, fattest worms. All right, we'll start out with the one from the first Ravnica block. And this one, I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know if this is a word that they made up for this creature or if this is a regular English word that I'm just not familiar with because of how rarely used it is. But it looks like it's Autochthon Wurm. And look at that horrendous casting cost, guys. 2 white, 3 green, 10 colors. 15 mana for a 9/14. Power has gone up since then. It's got Convoke, though, so you can get it out faster. But I think they were afraid of how powerful it might be with Convoke, so they gave it this obscene casting cost. So it's a 9/14 Trampler. Such a bizarre flavor text. And look at the armoring on its head. The armoring on its head is more intense than any of the other worms that we've seen. The other worms tend to only have it on their foreheads. This one has it all on its underjaw and everything. Its entire head is completely shod in metal. And look at the endless amount of teeth that it has running along the edges. Good Lord, it's just a tube mouth, man. And the flavor text, it's so evocative in terms of describing how long this worm is. The trainer awoke to begin the journey from the worm's tail to its head. The sun was setting when she arrived. It takes all day to walk from the head to the tail. How insane is that? And the idea that this thing is being trained and it's trainable is also amazing to me. So when we revisited Ravnica the second time, what did we get in terms of fat daddy worms then? Well, we got the even bigger, better, beefier Worldspine Wurm. And this one's 3 green and 8 colors, so it's only 11 mana for this one. For a 15/15 Trampler with this crazy artwork where it's almost like looming up in the mist. It almost looks like a tower. Oh my god. When Worldspine Wurm dies, you get 3 5/5 green worm creature tokens with trample. So it splits into 3 massive 5/5 worms, and look at it looming over the village beside it. You can see the buildings. Oh god. And when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, you shuffle it into its owner's library. It's an eternal worm that just keeps coming back. And every time it's greatly injured, other giant worms spill out of it. How epic and flavorful is this? I love that it's half shrouded in mist and looking mountainous. That is so cool. Very, very neat. So you've got to be wondering, what's the fattest daddy of them all? We're returning. What's coming next, boys? Well, that's the Impervious Greatwurm. This thing is intense. It's only 10 mana, 3 green and 7 colors. It's got Convoke as well, so you can get it out faster. It's indestructible. Truly impervious. 1616. The biggest creature in Magic the Gathering, guys. The biggest, baddest, right there. Oh my god. The ultimate answer to intrigue and subtlety. I love it. When I first looked at this, I thought that this thing's head was busting through the wall of a building. And then I realized, nope, it's dwarfing buildings as it's totally just lifting its head way up into the sky. This thing is amazing. I also enjoy the fact that this one's clearly under Celestian control, right? You have the Celestia watermark on it, so it belongs to the Celestian Guild. It looks even like it might have a Celestian tree painted on its head and war markings, but it's impervious. It needs no metal armoring. This is the ultimate worm on Ravnica. They finally found this breed of worm and have lured them up to the surface and joined them with the great consciousness. I love gigantic, fat, green creatures. This thing makes me happy. The artwork is fantastic. The focal point of just its head, and you're going, wow, that's a pretty big head. But when you take a step back and contrast it to the city and get a true scope of the gargantuan nature of this, it is truly, absolutely awe-inspiring. And I cannot wait to get this in my King Cube, boys. Oh, this is so dope. So, my friends, it is time for us to take a trip on over to 6th Color of Magicville. Let's do it.
And together, we are the 6th Color of Magic! Magic!
Magic.
6th Color of Magic!
Magic.
All right, now that the 6th color is taken care of, and by the way, guys, send them in. I know some people think, oh, is it only your patron? Oh, is it only these people? No, no, no. It's open to everybody, part of the community. If you want to be part of the 6th color, if you already are part of the 6th color, send me a clip. Be a part of what I'm doing. Show your friends. I know people get a giddy feeling when they see themselves in my videos, so join me. Now, roll the scroll. Let us see the Golden Lords of Purple, the men and ladies with the bravery to support the boss monster of magic. Welcoming our newest member, Wizard's Tower. Thank you for joining my Patreon. I absolutely love my patrons. You guys are ballers. So, what's next? Well, I got a couple of options for you. What are we going to do? We're going to say over here, more lore action. If you liked this video and the lore, got tons more over here. Probably almost 50 videos in this playlist. Get in there, get digging, have a good time. And over here, we'll go something hilarious from my other channel. It's really funny. Check it out. And I'm history, baby.